sing, "Oh, the Deep, Deep Love of Jesus." Now this one is to a familiar tune. If you'll hang on a second, I'll tell you what tune that is. I don't want to leave you in the lurch thinking, okay, I know that song, but that's not the right words. It's to the tune of "All That Thrills My Soul Is Jesus," but this one is called "Oh, the Deep, Deep Love of Jesus." So we're going to sing this together. Oh, the deep, deep love of Jesus, vast, unmeasured, boundless, free, rolling as a mighty ocean in its fullness over me. Underneath me, all around me, is the pouring of thy love, leading onward, leading homeward to my glorious rest above. Oh, the deep, deep love of Jesus, spread its praise from shore to shore. How he loveth evermore, changeth never, nevermore. How he watches o'er his loved ones, died to call them all his own. How for them he interceded, watching for them from the throne. Oh, the deep, deep love of Jesus, love of every love the best. 'Tis an ocean vast of blessing, 'tis a haven sweet of rest. Oh, the deep, deep love of Jesus, 'tis a hand of heaven to me, and it lifts me up to glory, for it lifts me up to thee. Thank y'all for singing that with me tonight, and I'm going to sing a little special here, and then Brother Bobby will come. Love to hear thy laws excelling, joy of heaven to earth come down, fixing us thy humble dwelling, all thy faithful mercies round. Jesus, thou art all compassion,
So if you take your Bible tonight and turn to the book of Revelation, I told you this morning we're not going deep into it for two reasons. One, I can't. No, I have gone through Revelations a couple of times in a couple of different churches, but I always used Adrian Rogers' material, and I used Cressman's material. First Baptist Dallas, I can't call his name right now. Oh, not retired, not there now, but the old one. Crystal, thank you very much. I see in Richards, so that's the reason all that got mixed up in my mind. But I used their material because I'll be honest with you, I'm not able to go through it in that right there. But I do believe that we have people today that God has revealed things to help us to understand those things, okay? Right now, it's certainly not me, okay? But I do believe that there are people out there. You just have to be very careful when you come to, especially this book. It's an apocalyptic, did I pronounce that right? Book, okay? And that, because it looks in things that basically are going to happen in the future. Now, as I said, we're not going to get that far ahead, because if you look at verse 4 to start with, what kind of, I told Melinda a while ago she could sing all she wanted to, because all I want to do tonight is just kind of introduce the book and let you know that, I don't know everything there is to know. And Linda, I want you to know that it's going to be a long study just getting through what we're going through. In fact, to be perfectly honest with you, they will have probably fired me and have somebody that knows what they're doing in here before we get through this, all right? So I just wanted you to know that before we get started, okay? So don't get too mad at me and doing those things. She understands maybe better than y'all do. Y'all do too. Y'all understand, Linda.
You didn't finish 1 John, so.
Huh?
You didn't finish 1 John.
I didn't finish 1 John. Was you not here last week? Yeah, it wasn't very good, but I did finish it.
You didn't get down where it said the conclusion.
Oh, I didn't get down to there. Oh, all right. Yeah, I did read that, did I not? Thank you for correcting me. I'll start calling you Diane. If you look at verse 4, then Jesus gives John somewhat of an outline of what the book is really going to be about in there. And he goes down through here, he says, grace to you and peace from him who is, who was, and who is to come. That was there. Now this right here, this book, you understand, it looks into the time, and if you get past chapter 4 and 5 deals with the rapture of the church and the church being in heaven, okay? I mean, that's my belief. Now, you get somebody else, they probably going to believe something else, okay? But that's my belief. Chapter 6, you're going to get into what God has called the Great Tribulation. Not the tribulation period, the Great Tribulation period. And you begin to get into what God is going to do to really bring back this earth into his fold, and it was basically sold to Satan when Adam sinned, and God is simply going to bring it back. And let me tell you something, you better hope that I'm right, that we're going to be raptured before all of that happens, because as bad as it is now, that's not anything compared to what's going to happen during the tribulation period. I mean, that is, in fact, Jesus said it is going to the Jews, and primarily you understand that if you go back into, especially the Old Testament prophecy, and even the passages in the book of Matthew, 24 and 25th chapters of the book of Matthew, Jesus is talking to Jews, okay? So, you understand that a lot of that prophecy deals with the nation of Israel and not basically with the church. We're in what we call, what most people call right now a division period, okay? That is there. There was the Old Testament, And when Jesus died, if you read the book of Daniel, and I don't want to get into all of that right now because I can confuse you more than I can confuse myself, and I'm saying a whole lot, okay, in that. But it is really, you can study this book and you can study the last part of the book of Daniel, and it would just simply, the prophecies that were given to Daniel and the dreams that were interpreted by Daniel goes right along with the book of Revelations in that. And it's a beautiful thing. But anyway, Jesus describes himself and he says, he who was, he who is, and he who is to come. In other words, when he starts this book right here, it's about Jesus Christ. And the whole first chapter, we're going to see what John sees when he has his vision of Jesus Christ. And it is going to be I can't think of glorified, that's the word I wanted to use, Christ, that he's going to visualize in that. And then when we get into the churches, the things that he says about Jesus Christ, he's going to relate each one of those to the church that is there. We'll do all of that when we come, but in this right here, he talked about Jesus, and Jesus is the eternal one. He was, he is to come. In fact, when Moses was talking to him at the bush, and Moses and he called Moses to go down and take the people of Israel out of Egypt, then Moses said, Lord, they're not going to believe me. I've already killed a man down there. And they're going to remember that, and they're not going to accept me. So who am I going to say sent me? And he just simply say, I am. I am. He is before, he's today, he's whatever a person needs at this time. That's Jesus Christ. And he describes that as that right there. And probably next week we'll begin discussing Jesus Christ. But let's just kind of go back to verse 1, and we'll kind of read through that tonight. And did I hear thunder? I know that sounds good. Ryan, maybe your prayer will be answered for you, all right? Yeah, I hope so. It says the revelation of Jesus Christ. In other words, what Jesus Christ is going to tell John. And John was exiled on the Isle of Patmos. Now, he was exiled there by, and help me because I didn't write this down and forgive me, but I believe it was the Emperor and I can't pronounce his name. It starts with a D, okay? That's the best I can get out of it right now. And he was put there, and what I read was he was probably there in 94 to 96 AD. 2 years that he was on that island. And we'll get more into that, but you understand that the Romans didn't particularly treat their prisoners well. And so John was probably pretty much on a deserted island, had to fetch for his own food, had no clean conditions whatsoever, and I'm sure they didn't give him a change of clothes every week, okay, to do that with. He had to pretty well take care of himself while he was on that island, and while he was on that island, then it was the time for Jesus to speak to him that was there. So he says the book of Revelation of Jesus Christ, which God gave him to show his servant things which must shortly take place. Now, you say, Brother Bobby, it hadn't come about. Well, you understand, with God, God is timeless. You follow that? So, we read someplace or another, I think it's, I don't know, y'all may have to correct me, I think it's in the book of Hebrews, where he says that, no, it's in the book of Peter, I think it is, that he says one day is as 1,000 years, and 1,000 years as a day. Time really doesn't mean anything. So when he says shortly come to pass, then there are two thoughts on this. One was that, and most of the apostles, I told you before, most of those that went out and preached, most of those disciples of Jesus when they began to preach, they really thought that Jesus was going to come back, not necessarily in their lifetime, but right around their lifetime anyway. In fact, if we read the last chapter of the book of John, then the word went out that John would never die, that Jesus would come back before John would die. So, but a short period of time to God is not anything. But there's another thought of this thing right here too, and that is that when he starts the process, okay, really when he starts the process, the things that are going to happen is going to happen quickly. Adrian Rogers, and I read a lot of his material on this and listened to a lot of his material on this. Adrian Rogers compared it to a movie reel. You remember those old movie reels you would set up and everything, and when the thing first starts out and you watch the thing peeling off over here, and it's slow and it's slow and it's slow and it's slow and it's slow. When it gets toward the end, that thing begins to spinning pretty fast. And that's the way he talked about the things that's going to happen at the end time, and that's the best way I can pronounce it, at the end time is that it's just simply going to seem like everything is going to speed up, okay? And it seems like everything is going to, we're going to realize that we're getting closer and closer and closer and closer to that. And he told us, he said, listen. In fact, he told his Pharisees one time, he says, listen, you can discern the seasons. You should be able to also discern the activity of God. And right now, and this is my belief, and I don't know when I'll be perfectly honest with you, I don't know when he's coming back. I will not even dare set y'all the date in this right here, okay? I just think it's going to be quickly. I mean, I really think it's going to happen, and that it's going to happen in the next few years. But don't go around and say, hey, Brother Bobby said he's coming back in the next 2 years. No, I didn't say that, okay? I just said that's what I believe. Because I believe everything right now we're seeing working around to the right time for him to come back. Now, it may be another 1,000 years, it may be another 2,000 years before he comes back. Okay, I don't have any idea, because that is simply God. When that last person gets saved on this earth, then he's going to come back. Okay, that is there. And I love the song, the midnight. And it's a midnight hour. Yeah, midnight cry. Yes, the midnight cry. I love that song and that, because he says, I can. God telling him, get your trumpet. Stand up, get ready to come back. And I think he's ready to come back. And that's here and there. I didn't mean to get into all of that, and I apologize for that, okay? He says, and he talks about John, and in verse 2, he says, and he bore witness to the word of God, to the testimony of Jesus Christ of all things, for he said, and all of this was given to John. But you understand, he's going to give, first of all, these things are going to be sent to 7 churches. 7 in the Bible is a complete number, okay? In other words, when he uses the number 7, that it is a completion of that. So I believe, again, that when he talks about the 7 churches, then he's going to send these to actual churches. In fact, I said something to Mike a while ago about putting up on the screen a map of all of these churches, because they were churches that actually existed in Asia Minor. Some of them began, and if you begin with Ephesus, which it begins with, and I don't know how to point this out, it's here, okay? The next one, which I think is Pergamos, if I'm not mistaken, the Smyrna or Pergamos one, it's up here. The next one up here, and they come on around and they make a horseshoe, and they get down to Laodicea, which is the last one down at the bottom again. They just kind of make a little horseshoe in that right there, and we'll see that as we go. And each one of them, I believe, represents a particular age of a church during that time that is there. Like the church at Ephesus would represent the 1st century church, okay? And part of the 2nd century church in that. But I think that they're one of these, but they are real churches. But 7 of them simply means that God simply means these represent the churches of all ages. They represent all the churches. Anytime you read the number 7, and I think it's used something like 94 times in the book of Revelation, but you read the number 7, then it simply means that he's talking about something being complete in that right there. 7 times they had to march around the Jericho, okay? In that. God uses that number 7 over and over and over again, because it is a complete number for him, and it just simply means, hey, this right here is a completion. Later on, we'll read about the seven spirits, which simply represents the totality of the spirits, or the full spirit of God that is there. So when we read these things, that is going to be there. So we're going to look at each one of these churches, and that's primarily what we're going to do. And it's going to take 7 weeks in order to get through those churches, because there's 7 churches, okay? And then if I'm still here, we'll go with a couple of more. If I'm not here, then y'all can just finish the rest of them by yourself, okay? And do it that. Because I guarantee you, your pastor that's going to come in, he's not going to start and try to straighten out a mess that I'm going to do with them. That is there. But it's an interesting study for me, and I love to look at the churches. Because like I said, I think each one of these churches is going to represent, well, one thing, they're going to represent a certain age, but we're going to see characteristics also of the churches of today in each one of them. Okay? And so when we look at those things, we're going to look at them from that standpoint. Hey, this right here happened in the 1st century, but it's something that we can also see happening in our churches today. And each one of them is the same way. That is there. One church, he had nothing whatsoever to say anything bad about. 2 churches, he really didn't have anything good to say about. Okay? And we'll see those as we go along through this right here. But that's kind of where we're going to begin, and I really didn't want to get into this too much of this right here, because next week we'll start with how John described the glorified Jesus. Okay? Thank you all so very much for being here tonight. Let's pray, okay? And Jimmy, would you dismiss us, please?